Hi there, my name's Hannah and I am a clinical naturopath here at the Health Lodge with a special interest in dietary education. I'm here today to talk to you about macronutrients. This presentation is a follow-on from my first presentation in the diet series that I have done. The first one being energy balance through dietary means, and this basically just talks a little bit more about how to attain that energy balance through the different types of macronutrients. Before we begin, I would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which the Health Lodge sits, the Arakwal people of the Bundjalung Nation, and pay our respects to the elders past, present and future. So one of the main questions we get asked is what the difference between macronutrients and micronutrients are. Macronutrients are the focus of our energy balance and our energy utilization that we've already been discussing so far, as they are nutrients that are required in large amounts as they provide energy for the body to function, being your carbohydrates, your protein and your fats. Now within those three groups of macronutrients, the certain foods that you eat will contain micronutrients. They do not supply energy, however, they are required in small amounts to support the body to function adequately, being things like our vitamins and our minerals. A classic example is your calcium for your bones and your iron for your red blood cells. They don't actually provide energy, but they provide help for optimal functioning of the body. So the first macronutrient we will discuss today is carbohydrates. So carbohydrates are made up of different chains of sugar molecules. Their primary role is to provide the main source of energy to all cells in the human body. Now, this is why carbohydrates sit higher in the percentile range according to the acceptable macronutrient distribution range that we discussed in our first presentation, because they are the preferred and the first choice of fuel over fats and protein. Glucose is the main sugar and end product of carbohydrate metabolism, so all carbohydrates are eventually broken down into what we can call glucose, which will affect our blood sugar levels. Carbohydrates can be grouped as either simple sugars, carbohydrates, or complex carbohydrates. Basically, the difference is that simple sugars and carbohydrates only contain a small chain of sugar molecules, whereas complex carbohydrates contain a longer chain of sugar molecules needing to be broken down in the small intestine, which takes longer and is more complex. So the type of carbohydrate, being simple or complex, will determine whether the food has a high GI or a low GI. Simple sugars tend to have high GI, whereas complex carbohydrates tend to have low GIs. The higher the GI of a food, the faster it will spike your blood glucose levels, and then this spike will stimulate the release of a hormone known as insulin to remove this glucose from the blood so it can be utilized as fuel for the brain and for the tissues. So simple carbohydrates can be found naturally in certain foods such as fruit, milk, honey, and beer and wine. So these types of sugars are known as your monosaccharides and your disaccharides. So things such as glucose, fructose, and lactose are classic examples here. They can also be added to foods such as alcohol, processed foods, lollies, soft drinks, and baked goods. And this is most commonly known as your sucrose, which is also table sugar. Simple sugars can also be found in refined foods such as white bread and white rice, because the fibre has been removed, making them more quick acting in terms of stimulating that glycemic response. So overall, simple sugars, they're absorbed in the small intestine and they will give a rapid glycemic response. So they will spike that blood sugar and give you that quick energy hit. However, things like lactose, which is found in dairy products, can sometimes pass through the large intestine, the small intestine into the large intestine, where it can be fermented and cause unwanted digestive complaints, which anyone who has lactose intolerance will know all about. And we have our complex carbohydrates. So they are referred to as starch and dietary fibre. Starch is a longer chain of sugar molecules and it's digested more slowly than the simple sugars, whereas fibre isn't digested. It moves into the large intestine undigested and is fermented by the microbiome, acting as a prebiotic which feeds the microbes in a good and beneficial way. Examples of this include whole grains, vegetables, fruit, nuts, and seeds. Resistant starch is a little bit different to normal starch as it escapes digestion and will move into the large intestine, acting similarly to fibre as a prebiotic. Examples will include cooled potato or rice, oats, underripe bananas. So there are two main types of fibres, being insoluble and soluble fibre. Insoluble fibre improves intestinal function, it helps to support stool bulking and improve regular bowel motions and consistency. Examples include things like wheat bran and the skins on your fruit and vegetables and nuts and seeds. Soluble fibre increases mineral absorption and will improve bone health. It will stabilize your blood glucose levels because the fibre actually slows the absorption of carbohydrates. And this type of fibre is linked to lower cholesterol levels and improved cardiovascular health. And overall, it will support a healthy microbiome, being a food for your microbes. So examples of this include things like psyllium husk, oats, legumes, citrus fruits, and bananas. Up next are your fats, and they are integral to satiety, so they help you feel full and satisfied after meals. They contribute to energy production. They're super important for your nervous system health and your hormonal production and regulation. They assist in the absorption of fat-soluble vitamins such as E, A, D, and K, and also the absorption of phytochemicals from plant foods. So a diet less than the recommended 20 to 35% of fat intake can actually have more adverse effects than beneficial. So move over 80s, fats are no longer the devil. The idea here, though, is to consume unsaturated fats with a healthy balance of saturated fats. Avoiding trans fats will be beneficial for overall health and, in particular, cardiovascular health. So there are three main types of fats, being your saturated, your trans, and your unsaturated. Your saturated can be found in things like butter and coconut oil, full-fat dairy, and fattier cuts of meat. Trans are found in things like processed foods, vegetable oils, baked goods, and margarines. And then you've got your unsaturated fats, which are the fats to consume more of, specifically your omega-3s. So you can get them from plant-based sources such as flax seeds, pumpkin seeds, and avocados, or you can get your omega-3s from your fish oils and algae oils. The important thing to note here is that this particular type of omega-3, being your EPA and your DHA, is an essential fatty acid. So it's really important that you do consume these through your diet, as you cannot make these fats endogenously within the body. Then you've also got your omega-6s, which are your sunflower seeds, walnuts, and evening primrose oil, and your omega-9 being the main one here, being your olive oil. So the last macronutrient to discuss today is protein. Protein is made up of amino acids, so otherwise known as building blocks, and this is what protein is broken down into in the small intestine. So there are 20 of these building blocks, known as amino acids, that can enable the body to function correctly, and 9 out of the 20 need to be consumed from your diet, as they cannot be made within the body. So amino acids are required for the repair and growth of muscles and tissues in the body. They are used to build carrier proteins. So an example of this is what we were talking about earlier. Hemoglobin is a protein in the blood that is used for oxygen to be carried around the body. And transferrin is a protein in the blood that carries iron through the body. So these are made from protein and from your amino acids, hence why it's so important to make sure that you're having optimal protein intake to ensure that the body functions adequately. They are also the precursors to neurotransmitters such as your serotonin, your dopamine, and GABA, so very important for a healthy nervous system. They are required for our thyroid function and therefore healthy metabolism. And low protein levels, so low amino acid intake, can increase opportunistic infections as it will impair our host immunity. So here are some dietary sources of protein. We've got our protein from animal sources that contain all the essential amino acids, such as lean meats, poultry, fish, eggs, dairy products, and then there are some plant-based products that will contain all of the 9 essential amino acids, being soybeans, quinoa, and amaranth. Then there's your plant-based proteins, which will need to be consumed as a mix to attain all essential amino acids. That just means that one source of protein from a plant food will not contain all of those 9 essential amino acids, but another source of plant food may contain the amino acid that it's missing. So it's important to combine lots of different plant foods when avoiding animal-based protein. So you've got things like nuts and seeds and your legumes and your beans. If you have any questions around tailoring your macronutrients to your energy balance and your diet, then please get in touch and we can explore what you're eating, if you're eating the right amounts, and making sure that you're having a healthy balance of your macronutrients to meet optimal energy requirements.